The millionaire followed his ex out of distrust and froze. She was hiding a secret that would change her life forever. When he saw her with 2 children identical to him, he stopped breathing. In the pain of the past, he found again the love he swore to bury. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We will continue. From the 50th floor of the city's most imposing building, Gail Mueller gazed out at the city that stretched out beneath him like a carpet of twinkling lights. The mirrored office reflected his austere silhouette, impeccable Italian suit, graying, hair at the temples and brown eyes that bore the weight of difficult decisions. At 45, he was the founder and CEO of TechVision, one of the largest technology companies on the continent. The soft sound of the answering machine interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Mueller, the meeting with Asian investors is confirmed for tomorrow, at 8 a.m. The quarterly reports you requested have also arrived." Gael adjusted his silk tie in front of the glass, his reflection blending into the cityscape. Over the past 5 years, he had built TechVision into a giant in the industry, with branches in a dozen countries and a market value in the billions. His name was synonymous with success, innovation, and power. Business magazines called him the continent's visionary. But tonight, like so many others, the empire of glass and steel felt strangely empty. His fingers unconsciously brushed the mark of the wedding ring he no longer wore. Helena. The name still caused an inexplicable tightness in his chest. 5 years had passed since she had left, taking the newborn twins with her. At the time, he had been so absorbed in his achievements that he had barely had time to process the loss. Or maybe that was just the excuse he kept telling himself. "Mr. Mueller?" The answering machine's voice sounded again. "You have one more call pending." "Cancel." His voice came out harsher than he intended. "Reschedule for tomorrow." Gael grabbed his coat and decided to do something unusual. Leave early. The panoramic elevator descended smoothly down the 50 floors, reflecting his fragmented image on the mirrored walls. In the lobby, employees were still working, some waving respectfully as he passed. His driver was already waiting for him at the entrance, but for the first time in years he dismissed the service. "I'm going to walk a little, Paolo. You can go home." The night air was surprisingly pleasant. Gael began walking without a specific destination, letting his feet guide him through the streets of the financial center. The imposing buildings gave way to older constructions, the hubbub of executives being replaced by the typical late-afternoon movement. That was when his eyes caught something that made his heart skip a beat. A woman with wavy brown hair was rushing out of an old building, carrying a folder full of papers. Even from a distance, he would recognize that way of walking anywhere. Helena. Without thinking twice, his feet changed direction. Keeping a discreet distance, he began to follow her. Helena crossed a few blocks, caught a bus, something she would never have imagined seeing her ex-wife do, and got off in a modest residential neighborhood, very different from the luxurious penthouse where they lived together. The sun was just setting when she walked into an elementary school. Minutes later, she emerged accompanied by 2 identical girls about 5 years old, their dark hair tied in different braids, one with a blue ribbon, the other with a pink ribbon, her daughters. The air left her lungs as if she had been punched. The 3 of them walked down a tree-lined street, the girls skipping and chatting excitedly, while Helena listened to them with a serene smile on her lips. They stopped in front of a simple but well-kept house, with a small garden at the entrance. The twins ran inside while Helena stopped to water some plants. Gael remained there, hidden behind a tree, observing that everyday scene with a mixture of fascination and pain. There was no trace of the bitterness he imagined he would find in his ex-wife. On the contrary, she seemed at peace, a peace that he, with all his empire of glass and technology, had never achieved. When night finally fell, he forced himself to turn around and return to his world of luxury and solitude. But something had changed. The seed of restlessness had been planted, and he knew that his life would never be the same after that accidental encounter. As he walked back, a question kept ringing in his mind. Was there still time to rebuild what had been lost? The next morning, Gale cancelled all his meetings, an unthinkable thing to do in his meticulously planned routine. Dressed more casually than usual, he drove to the old building he had seen Helena emerge from the day before. A modest sign identified the place: New Horizons Community Center, Literacy and Integration Project. The interior of the building was simple but welcoming. Colorful posters decorated the walls, many of them with children's drawings and phrases in different languages. A middle-aged woman, who introduced herself as Donna Carmen, welcomed him with a warm smile. "How can I help you, sir?" "I would like to learn about the center's work," Gale replied, feeling strangely out of place. "I heard you have a literacy program for immigrant children?" Donna Carmen immediately became excited. "Oh yes, it's our main project. We have wonderful volunteers who dedicate their time to teaching not only how to read and write, but also how to adapt to the new culture. Helena, for example, is one of our best teachers." Gile's heart raced when he heard her name. "And how does the project work?" "Come, I'll show you," Donna Carmen replied, guiding him through the hallways. They passed several makeshift classrooms where volunteers worked with small groups of children. The environment was simple, almost precarious. The chairs were old, the computers were obsolete, and it was possible to see some leaks in the ceiling. They stopped in front of one of the classrooms. Through the window in the door, Gale saw Helena sitting in a circle with 5 children. She was holding a picture book and reading expressively, using different voices for each character. The children watched her completely absorbed, smiling, and reacting to each new page. "She has a special gift," Donna Carmen commented, noticing her interest. "These children arrived here 3 months ago without speaking a word of our language. Now they can follow entire stories." Gale watched as Helena interacted with the young students. Her face lit up in a way he hadn't seen in years. It was the same expression she had when she talked about her dreams of making a difference in the world. Dreams that he, in his obsession with material success, had never truly understood. "Is the center going through difficulties?" he asked, noting more details of the precarious state of the place. Donna Carmen sighed. "Always. We depend on donations and volunteer work. Last month we almost had to close one of the classes due to lack of materials, but Helena is tireless. She always finds a way to keep going." At that moment, an idea began to form in Gale's mind. Maybe there was a way to get closer, to show that he had changed without directly interfering in the life that Helena had built. "Donna Carmen, if I wanted to make a donation, or help in some way—" "That would be wonderful," she exclaimed, but then her expression turned serious. "But I have to be honest, our biggest problem isn't just one-off donations. The building was recently sold, and the new owner wants to raise the rent. In 3 months we may have to leave." Gale felt a pang in his chest. The community center wasn't just a social project, it was the place where Helena had found her purpose, where she flourished. It was also, he realized, clearly her best chance to reconnect with her past. He left the center with his head buzzing with ideas. In his office, he spent the entire afternoon researching similar social projects, tax incentive legislation, and possibilities for investing in education. For the first time in years, his thoughts were not focused on profits or market expansion. At the end of the day, when it was already getting dark, he drove past his daughter's school. Laura and Sophia. Their names echoed in his mind like a long-forgotten song. He watched as they came out, each with their own colorful backpack, talking animatedly to their mother. The one wearing the blue ribbon was gesturing energetically, while the one with the pink ribbon walked more restrainedly, holding Helena's hand tightly. That night in his luxurious, empty apartment, Gale made a decision. He would help the community center, but he would do it anonymously. Not out of pride or strategy, but because for the first time he wanted to do something without expecting recognition in return. He wanted to prove, especially to himself, that he was capable of giving without receiving, of building without dominating, of loving without possessing. 2 weeks had passed since Gale had begun his discreet approach to the Novos Horizontes Community Center. Through a corporate foundation, he had managed to channel substantial funds to renovate the building, without his name appearing on any documents. New computers had been installed, the roof had been repaired, and a small library had begun to take shape in the old warehouse. That afternoon he decided to visit the center again, this time with the excuse of seeing the results of the improvements. When he arrived, he found the place in a frenzy. It was the day of the Spring Festival, a celebration organized to integrate the families of immigrant students into the local culture. The courtyard was decorated with colorful flags, and the smell of popcorn and wine filled the air. That was when he saw them, Laura and Sophia, his daughters, helping to organize the games for the younger children. Even though they were identical twins, he could now clearly distinguish them. Laura, with her blue ribbon, had a constant smile and an infectious energy, running from one place to another and talking to everyone. Sophia, wearing her inseparable pink ribbon, kept to herself, observing everything with attentive and perceptive eyes. "They're young volunteers, Donady," Carmen explained, coming closer. "Helena brings the girls a few times a week. Laura loves helping with the recreational activities, while Sophia prefers organizing the books in the new library." Gael felt his heart tighten. His daughters had inherited not only Helena's appearance, but also her vocation for caring for others. A side of them that he had never had the chance to know, or perhaps he had never given himself the opportunity. "Sophia!" A sudden scream cut through the air. Laura ran towards her sister, who had tripped while carrying a box of books. Gael reacted instinctively, crossing the courtyard in long strides. He reached Sophia at the same time that Helena emerged from one of the rooms. "Are you okay?" The words came out of their mouths simultaneously, and their gazes met for the first time. In 5 years, time seemed to freeze. Helena was more beautiful than she remembered, with small streaks of grey that hadn't been there before, and soft lines around her eyes that only enhanced their expressiveness. She paled when she recognized him, but kept her composure. "I'm fine," Sophia mumbled, looking confusedly from one adult to the other. "I just slipped." Laura, more perceptive, frowned as she noticed the tension in the air. "Mommy, who is he?" Helena took a deep breath, regaining control. "Girls, this is Gael Muller. He's your father." The silence that followed was deafening. Laura's eyes widened, her normally cheerful expression giving way to cautious curiosity. Sophia, in turn, took a step back, instinctively approaching her mother. "Why are you here?" Sophia's voice was low, but filled with a hurt that pierced Gael's heart like a needle. "I came to see the work of the center," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "And also, I really wanted to meet you." "Now?" Laura asked, her tone surprisingly mature for a 5-year-old. "After all this time?" Helena intervened, her voice soft but firm. "Girls, why don't you go help Donna Carmen with the flags? I need to talk to your father." The twins walked away, but not before exchanging meaningful glances. Laura threw one last curious look over her shoulder, while Sophia kept her eyes fixed on the ground. "So it was you," Helena said once they were alone. "It wasn't a question. The donations, the renovations, I should have known." "I didn't do it for you," Gael replied, surprising himself with his honesty. "Or maybe I did, in part. But mostly, I did it because this place, what you do here, is important." Helena studied him for a moment, as if trying to decipher a complex puzzle. "You've changed, Gael." "I had to change," he admitted. "Seeing you that day with the girls, I realized how much time I wasted chasing things that didn't really matter." A small, sad smile played across her lips. "You know what's ironic? For years I've dreamed of this moment. That you'd notice, that you'd come back. I've even stopped waiting." "What now?" Gael asked, his heart pounding against his chest. "Now." Helena looked towards her daughters, who were trying to hide their interest in the adults' conversation. "Now it's complicated, Gael. The girls have an established life, routines, feelings, and I can't just—" "I'm not asking to go back to the way we were," he interrupted her gently. "I'm just asking for a chance to get to know them, to be a part of their lives, even if it's just as a distant friend from the community center." Helena was silent for a long moment, watching the party continue around them. Finally, she said, "Come next Wednesday, It's afternoon reading day at the library. Sophia always chooses the books and Laura does the voices of the characters. It was more than Gale had hoped for, but less than his heart had longed for. It was a beginning, a small step on a long journey of reconnection. As he watched his daughters play in the distance, he silently vowed that this time he would not waste the opportunity to build something truly valuable. Wednesday came more slowly than Gale would have liked, but he was finally there, standing in front of the community center's new library. Through the half-open door he could hear Laura's excited voice, clearly in the middle of a dramatic performance. And then the dragon realized that he didn't need to scare people to make friends, she exclaimed, using a deep, theatrical voice. That made the other children laugh. Gale entered silently, positioning himself in a discreet corner of the room. Sophia was sitting in an armchair next to the bookshelf, holding the next book in the stack, her eyes fixed on the pages as if she were deliberately trying to ignore his presence. Helena, in turn, supervised the activity while organizing some materials. When the story ended, the children applauded enthusiastically. Laura bowed deeply, her face flushed with satisfaction. It was then that she noticed Gale. "You really came," she said, her voice a mixture of surprise and something that sounded like hope. "A promise is a promise," he replied, trying to sound casual despite the nervousness he felt. Sophia finally looked up from her book, her piercing gaze so reminiscent of Helena's that it hurt. "Do you know any interesting stories?" she asked, her tone more challenging than curious. Gale thought for a moment, then smiled. "Actually, I know a true story about a girl who grew up in a country far away from here and dreamed of building computers." Sophia's interest wavered for a second. "Is it about technology?" "It's about dreams," he corrected gently, "and how sometimes we need courage to make them come true." Helena, who had been watching the interaction discreetly, gave a small nod of approval. Gale sat down in one of the chairs in the circle and began to tell the story of Ada Lovelace, the first programmer in history. To his surprise, Sophia gradually approached him, her eyes shining as he described how Ada had combined mathematics with imagination to create something revolutionary. "Was she like an inventor?" Laura asked, now sitting on the floor near his feet. "A visionary," Gale replied. "She saw possibilities that no one else could see at the time." "Like Mommy," Laura exclaimed, looking adoringly at Helena. "She always says we can transform anything with imagination and work." Sophia, who had moved close enough to sit on the edge of a nearby chair, commented quietly, "Tech vision. You created it, didn't you?" Gale nodded, feeling a twinge of emotion as he heard his daughter mention her company for the first time. "Yes, it was. But you know what? Today I learned that there are different types of creation. Your mother, she creates hope. She creates opportunities. That's much more important than creating technology." Helena, who had come closer to hear the story, let out a small gasp of surprise. It was the first time that Gale had openly acknowledged the value of her work, even if indirectly. The rest of the afternoon passed at a surprisingly natural pace. Laura persuaded Gale to do some voiceovers for the next story, while Sophia, quietly, showed him her meticulous organization of books by theme and color. In one particularly touching moment, she confided that she was trying to create a digital cataloging system, even if it was just in a notebook. As the sun began to set, signaling the end of the activities, Gale realized that those few hours had been more significant than many of his professional achievements. While helping to put away the books, he noticed a small drawing lying on the floor. Two girls holding hands with a tall figure in the background, a question mark in place of a face. "It's mine," Laura admitted, blushing slightly as she realized he'd found the drawing. "I was wondering what it would look like." Gale felt his heart tighten. "And how do you imagine it would be?" Laura exchanged a quick glance with her sister before replying, "Different from what I thought." "Better, I think." Sophia didn't say anything, but as Gale was leaving, she handed him a folded piece of paper. "It's a list of books we need for the library," she explained quickly. In case you'd like to help pick some out." It was a small gesture, but full of meaning, a veiled invitation to return, to be part of the world they had built without Him. Gale put the paper in his pocket as if it were a treasure, because in a way that was exactly what it was. Over the following weeks, Gale's visits to the community center became more frequent. Every Wednesday, without fail, he was present for the reading afternoons, and little by little he began to show up on other days as well, always with a new book under his arm or some idea for improving the space. What he didn't know was that he wasn't the only one watching this gradual rapprochement. Ricardo, a physical education teacher who worked at a nearby school, had been coming to the center for more than 2 years as a volunteer. At 38 years old, with his unpretentious manner and easy smile, he had become a constant presence in the lives of Helena and the girls. That Friday afternoon, while Gale helped Sophia implement her cataloging system on one of the new computers, Ricardo watched the scene from the library door, his normally cheerful expression marked by a rare seriousness. "You didn't tell me he was back," he said quietly, to Helena, who was organizing materials on a nearby table. Helena sighed, running her hand through her hair in a nervous gesture that Ricardo knew well. It wasn't exactly a planned return. He found us by chance. "And now he's always here," Ricardo added, his neutral tone failing to completely mask a hint of concern. The girls seemed to be getting closer to him. Laura especially, Helena agreed, watching her more outgoing daughter who was currently showing Gale a drawing she had made. Sophia still keeps her distance, but you know her. She processes things in her own time. Ricardo moved a little closer, lowering his voice even more. "Helena, we need to talk about us, about the plans we made." Her face tensed for a moment. For the past few weeks, she had avoided thinking about Ricardo's request, a month ago, to formalize their relationship and possibly begin the process of adopting the girls. At the time, it had seemed like a natural progression. He was present, caring, and the twins adored him as a friend and mentor. "I know," she finally replied. "Only now. Now everything's more complicated," he added gently. "I understand. I don't want you to get hurt again, Helena, or the girls." Across the room, Gale patiently explained to Sophia how to create a simple database to catalog books. The normally reserved girl's eyes lit up with interest as she absorbed every word. "So can we put tags for each category?" she asked, leaning closer to the screen. "Exactly." Gale smiled, clearly proud. "And then we can create filters to find exactly what we're looking for." Laura, who had lost interest in the technical part, was leafing through a book next to them, occasionally casting curious glances at her father. Suddenly, she raised her head with a determined expression. "Are you coming to our anniversary?" he asked abruptly, making both Gale and Sophia freeze. The silence that followed was heavy. Helena and Ricardo, who were still talking near the entrance, also stopped when they heard the question. "Laura," Helena began, taking a step forward, but her daughter interrupted her. "It's next week," Laura continued, her voice a mix of hope and defiance. "It'll be here in the center. Everyone will come. Uncle Ricardo will have games in the yard, and Donna Carmen promised to make chocolate cake." Gale swallowed, his eyes meeting Helena's in a silent request for guidance. To his surprise, it was Sophia who broke the impasse. "You can come," she said, not taking her eyes off the computer screen, "but you have to bring a nice gift, and it can't be anything too expensive because Mommy doesn't like it." Ricardo took a step back, a sad smile playing on his lips. "I think I'll go check on the volleyballs for the games," he muttered to Helena, moving away discreetly. Helena watched him leave, feeling the weight of the choices not made and the paths that forked before her. Gale, for his part, seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. "I'd love to come," he finally managed to say, his voice hoarse with emotion, "if your mother allows it, of course." All heads turned to Helena, who felt the weight of this moment. This wasn't just about a birthday party. It was about opening a door that once opened might never be closed again. "Of course you can come," she finally replied, surprising even herself with the firmness in her voice. "It is their birthday. After all." The smile that lit up Laura's face could have turned on all the lights in the community center. Even Sophia, still pretending to be absorbed in her computer, couldn't completely hide the small smile that appeared on her lips. That night, as she was closing the center, Helena found a small post-it stuck to her bag, with Ricardo's unmistakable handwriting. Sometimes time doesn't heal, it just shows us the right path to follow. The twins' birthday dawned bright and sunny, as if the sky itself wanted to join in the celebration. Gail arrived at the community center an hour earlier than planned, carrying 2 carefully wrapped packages, one in blue paper, the other in pink. He had spent the entire week thinking about the gifts, aware that his choice would be analyzed not only by the girls, but also by Helena. For Laura, after much research, she found a handmade shadow theater kit made by a group of local artists. For Sophia, a refurbished notebook, not the latest model, respecting the request that it not be too expensive, but perfectly suitable for her cataloging projects. When he entered the courtyard, already decorated with balloons and colorful ribbons, he found Ricardo organizing some games. The 2 men exchanged a look full of unspoken meanings. "Do you need help?" Gail offered, surprising them both with the initiative. Ricardo hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Can you help set up the circuit for the scavenger hunt? The kids should be here soon." They worked in silence for a few minutes until Ricardo finally spoke. "They are incredible girls, you know. I've had the privilege of watching them grow up over the last 2 years." "No," Gail replied, feeling the weight of those words. "I wasted a lot of precious time." "What's important is what you do with the time you have now," Ricardo said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "They deserve to have a father present in their lives. Just don't hurt them again." Before Gail could respond, a burst of laughter could be heard from the entrance. Laura and Sophia arrived with Helena, both wearing dresses that matched but were not identical, further proof of how his ex-wife respected each of their individualities. "You came," Laura exclaimed, running towards him. She stopped abruptly when she saw the packages, her eyes shining with curiosity. Sophia approached more slowly, but Gail noticed that she was also looking at the presents with interest. "You remembered the right colors," he commented, an almost smile on his lips. The party unfolded like a delicately choreographed dance. Ricardo led the games with his usual energy, but kept a respectful distance when Gail interacted with the girls. Helena moved among the guests, mostly children from the center and their parents, with her usual grace, occasionally stopping to watch her daughters with their father. The moment for presents came after the cake. Laura opened her first one, letting out a cry of joy at the sight of the shadow theater. She immediately began to assemble the characters, her eyes shining with the possibilities. "We can use it for reading afternoons," she exclaimed, already planning presentations. Sophia opened her package more calmly, but her reaction was no less intense. Her eyes widened when she saw the notebook, and for a moment she seemed speechless. "It's not new," Gail explained quickly, noticing Helena's worried look. "It's refurbished, but perfectly functional for your projects. And look," he opened his computer, showing that he had already installed a basic cataloging program. "We can improve it together if you want." Sophia touched the keyboard reverently. "Can I create my own system?" she asked, her voice barely containing her excitement. "Sure," Gail smiled. "In fact, I thought we could develop something especially for the community center. You would be the lead programmer on the project." Sophia's face lit up with a genuine smile, the first Gail had ever received from her. Laura, already involved in her shadow theater, raised her head. "Hey, I want to help too. I can do the presentations when the system is ready." Helena, who was watching the scene, felt something in her heart move. It was as if a piece that had been out of place for a long time finally found its correct fit. Ricardo approached her discreetly. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's weird. For so long I've wondered what it would be like if he came back. I was so afraid the girls would get hurt, but now you see that some stories deserve a new chapter," Ricardo added, with a wisdom that surprised Helena. "Sometimes the best gift is not something we can wrap." At the end of the party, when the children had already left and only those closest to them remained to help with the cleaning, Laura pulled Gail to a corner. Uncle Ricardo said you were different before, she said seriously. That you only thought about work, is that true? Gail felt the weight of that childish question. Yes, it's true. I was different. But people can change, Laura, especially when they find something more important than work. Like what? Like realizing you have two amazing daughters, he replied, his heart overflowing, and you don't want to miss any more special moments in their lives. A week after the birthday party, Sophia was exploring the far corners of the community center, looking for forgotten books to add to her new cataloging system. It was during this search that she found, in the back of a dusty closet, an old shoe. Totally curious, she opened the lid and discovered dozens of envelopes yellowed with age. Her heart raced as she recognized her mother's handwriting on the first envelope. They were letters, all addressed to Gail Mueller, dated 5 years ago. None of them had been sent. With trembling hands, Sophia picked up the first letter and began to read. Dear Gail, today the girls smiled for the first time. Laura did it first and Sophia followed a few minutes later, as if she didn't want to be left behind. I wish you were here to see it. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about calling you, about telling you about every little moment you're missing. But then I remember the last time I tried to share something like this, and you were too busy video chatting to Shanghai. Sophia swallowed hard and picked up another letter, this one dated a few months later. Gail, I tried to reach you today. I went to the Tech Vision building, but your secretary said you were in an important meeting. I left a message like I have every other time. I know you never call back. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe you're right and there's no room in your life for little moments. But girls are growing up so fast. Letter after letter, Sophia discovered a story she had never known. Her mother was not the bitter woman her father might have imagined. She was someone who had tried over and over to build bridges that had never been crossed. The twins said, Mama, today. I cried thinking about when they'll say Dada, if they ever will. Laura is starting to ask about you. Sophia just stares at your portrait with those serious eyes of hers. How do you explain to 2 3-year-olds that their father chose a glass empire over them? The last letter was different from the others. The ink was smudged in places, as if tears had fallen onto the paper. My love, this will be the last. Time I write, I realize that these letters are more for me than for you. They are my way of keeping alive a hope that perhaps should never have existed. The girls are growing up strong and happy. Laura has your smile, you know. And Sophia has your determination, even if she uses that strength in very different ways than you do. I always imagined that one day you would realize what you were missing, that you would leave a meeting in the middle of it, run to our house, and beg to be a part of our lives. What a foolish dream, isn't it? You built your empire, Gail, and we built our lives without you. But I want you to know this, I never let the girls hold a grudge. When they ask about you, I tell them you're building something important. I don't lie. I just don't specify that. That something important was your choice instead of theirs. I wish you to be happy, Gail, truly happy. Maybe one day you will discover that happiness is not measured in square meters of office space or in the numbers in a bank account. With love, Helena. Sophia sat there on the dusty floor, the letters scattered around her like autumn leaves. Silent, tears streamed down her face as pieces of a puzzle she never knew existed began to fall into place. Sophia, are you there? Laura's voice echoed through the hallway. Daddy's here for our programming class. Sophia quickly put the letters back in the box, except for the last one, which she slid into her notebook. Her heart pounded as she wiped away her tears. For the first time, she looked beyond her own heartbreak and saw something different, a love story that hadn't worked out but that maybe, just maybe, deserved a second chance. I'll be right there, he replied, his voice shaking slightly. Before he left, he looked one last time at the shoebox, now hidden away in the back of the closet. Those letters were more than just words never sent. They were a testament to the fact that sometimes the EEI greatest regrets come from the bridges we dare not cross. During the programming class that afternoon, Gail noticed something different about Sophia. Her eyes, usually focused and analytical, seemed distant, as if her mind was somewhere else. Several times he caught her looking at him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "Is everything okay?" he finally asked, when Laura left to get a snack from Donna Carmem. Sophia hesitated, her fingers playing nervously with the edge of her notebook. "Why didn't you ever respond to Mum's messages?" The question caught Gail completely off guard. "Messages?" "She tried to reach you," Sophia continued, her voice low but firm. "Several times she left messages with your secretary." Gael felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. I never received any message." Sophia opened her notebook and took out the carefully folded letter. "I found this today. There's more, much more. Mom wrote to you for years, but she never sent it." With trembling hands, Gael took the letter. As he read, his face lost its color. Each word was like a needle in his heart, each unsent sentence a painful reminder of all the missed opportunities. "I didn't know," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Sophia, I swear I didn't know. If I had received any message—" "What would you have done?" Sophia interrupted, her eyes now fixed on him. "Would you have left a meeting in the middle? Would you have come to see us?" Gael closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that question. "I would like to say yes, but back then I was a different person. I was blind, Sophia, blinded by ambition, by pride, by a distorted idea of success." "And now?" "Now?" He opened his eyes, meeting his daughter's piercing gaze. "Now I would give anything, every penny, every award, every achievement, to go back in time and do it differently. To be there when you and Laura smiled your first smile, said your first words." "You can't go back in time," Sophia said, her voice softening a little. "But it's here now." Just then Laura came bounding back with a package of cookies. "I brought some for everyone, including you, Daddy. They're your favorites, aren't they? Mommy always buys them." Gael and Sophia exchanged meaningful look. Helena still remembered her favorite cookies even after so long. "Sophia," Gael called softly, "those other letters. Can I see them?" Her daughter nodded slowly. "They're stored in an old cabinet, but I think you should talk to Mom first." "About what?" Laura asked, chewing on a biscuit. "About bridges," Sophia replied, surprising everyone with the metaphor. "About bridges that we thought had fallen down, but perhaps only needed to be rebuilt." Gael felt his heart swell with pride and admiration for his daughter. At just 5 years old, Sophia demonstrated an understanding of the complexity of feelings that many adults never achieved. "You're right," he said, carefully tucking the letter into his jacket. "Some conversations need to happen in person." Laura looked from one to the other, clearly feeling like she had missed something important. "I didn't understand anything about bridges, but can we continue our lesson? I want to show Mommy the program we're doing." Gael smiled, pulling his more outgoing daughter into a spontaneous hug. "Of course we can. In fact, how about we do something special today? Sophia, do you still have that idea for the library system?" Sophia's face lit up, all previous tension momentarily forgotten. "I do, and I've thought of some improvements." As the girls hunched over the computer, Gael couldn't stop thinking about the letter in his pocket. Every word Helena had said echoed in his mind, painting a picture of possibilities he had never considered. Outside, the afternoon sun cast golden shadows through the library windows, creating an almost magical moment. And there, amid lines of code and the laughter of his daughters, Gael Muller, the man who had built an empire, began to understand that some treasures cannot be measured in spreadsheets or charts of success. The next morning, Helena arrived at the community center early. She needed to organize some paperwork before the activities began, but her mind had been restless since the night before, when Sophia had asked surprisingly specific questions about her past during dinner. When he opened the door to his small office, he found an envelope on his desk. Inside was the last letter he had written to Gael, along with a recent note. "We need to talk. I'll be at the cafe on the corner at 9 G." Helena sat up, her legs suddenly weak. She recognized the letter at once, one of many she had written during those lonely years. But how? Sophia, Of course, her most observant daughter had always had a gift for discovering secrets. At 9 a.m. sharp, Helena pushed open the door to the cafe. Gail was already there, sitting at a discreet table in the back. He wasn't wearing his usual business suit, but a casual shirt and jeans, a sight that made her pause for a moment, remembering the man she had fallen in love with all those years. "Hello, thank you for coming," he said, standing to pull out her chair for her. Sophia found the letters. Helena got straight to the point, sitting down. "Yes," Gail nodded, his eyes revealing deep emotion. "Helena, I never knew about your attempts to contact me. The messages. Does it matter now?" "It matters," he replied firmly. "It matters because for years I've built a narrative in my mind. I thought you'd moved on in anger, that you despised me. I never imagined that I had tried, that I had waited for years for you to look beyond your own reflection in the glass of that building." Gail looked down at his untouched coffee cup. "Forgive me." Helena felt her throat tighten. It was the first time she had heard him ask for forgiveness, not just in words but in a sincere and vulnerable tone. "I've got a proposal," she said suddenly, surprising them both with her change of subject. "The International Education Foundation wants me to lead a project in Europe. It's the kind of opportunity I've always dreamed of." Gail felt his heart freeze. "You will accept?" "I haven't decided yet. The girls are finally connecting with you. Sophia, Gail's so excited about the library project, and Laura, well, you saw how she lights up when she's around you now. I can't ask you to turn down this opportunity," Gail said slowly. "It would be selfish of me, but..." "But?" "I've also received an offer. The board wants me to lead Tech Vision's expansion into Asia. It would mean moving to Singapore for at least 2 years. Helena looked at him, surprised. "And what did you decide?" "I declined," he replied simply. "For the first time in my life, I chose something more important than expanding the company." The silence that followed was loaded with unspoken meaning. Helena studied the man in front of her. Not the tech mogul, not the absent ex-husband, but someone who was genuinely trying to change. "I have a counter-proposal," Gail continued, his voice taking on a hopeful tone. "The community center, what if we turned it into something bigger? A pilot project for technology education for underserved communities. We could combine your knowledge of education with my experience in technology, create something unique, something that could be replicated elsewhere." Helena tilted her head, interested. "Go on." "Imagine coding labs for young people, professional training courses, a special program for girls in technology. Sophia could be our first official student," he smiled. "We could impact thousands of lives, Helena, and we would do it. Together, each contributing our strengths." "And the girls?" "They would be close to both of us. They would continue to go to school with their friends. And most importantly, they would see their parents building something meaningful, something that goes beyond money or prestige." Helena felt tears forming in her eyes. "You've really changed, haven't you?" "Thanks to you," he replied softly. "You and the girls taught me that there's a difference between building an empire and building a legacy." At that moment, Helena's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Sophia. "Mummy, don't forget that today is the day to catalogue the new books that arrived. Daddy promised to teach me a new code to improve the system." Helena showed the message to Gail, a small smile forming on her lips. "It seems that some decisions are easier than we imagine." "So, is that a yes to my proposal?" "It's a let's try," she replied, her smile widening. "After all, some bridges are worth rebuilding." Gail felt his heart expand with hope. Outside the cafe, the morning sun illuminated the streets of the modest neighborhood that had become the scene of his greatest transformation. The community center was a hive of activity that afternoon. A small crowd had gathered in the makeshift auditorium for what Helena had announced as an important meeting. Ricardo was arranging the chairs, casting curious glances at Gail as he adjusted a newly installed projector. Laura and Sophia, sitting in the front row, whispered to each other. Since the discovery of the letters, The twins seemed even closer, as if they shared a precious secret. "Do you think it will work?" Laura whispered to her sister. Sophia adjusted her pink ribbon thoughtfully. "The cataloging system is already working well. If we scale it up—" "I'm not talking about the system, silly," Laura rolled her eyes. "I'm talking about Mommy and Daddy working together." Before Sophia could answer, Helena went up to the small, improvised stage. Gael discreetly positioned himself next to her, while Ricardo sat next to the girls. "Thank you all for coming," Helena began, her voice clear and confident. "As you know, the Novos Horizontes Community Center has been more than a literacy project. It has been a home for many, a place of transformation and hope." She paused, her eyes roaming over the familiar faces in the audience. "Today, I want to share with you a new vision for our future. A vision that unites education and technology, tradition and innovation." Gael stepped forward, clicking the remote control to start the presentation. Images of the current center mixed with architectural plans of a renovated and expanded space. "Through a partnership with Tech Vision," Helena continued, "we will transform Novos Horizontes into a center of excellence in technology education for underserved communities. But don't worry, we will maintain all the current projects. In fact, we will expand them." The presentation showed modern laboratories, classrooms equipped with cutting-edge technology, and common spaces that maintained the center's characteristic, welcoming atmosphere. "Every detail was thought out to maintain the essence of what we built here," explained Gael. "We don't want to create just a technology center, but a space where technology and humanity walk together." In the audience, Ricardo watched everything with mixed emotions. His gaze met Helena's for a moment, and he smiled, nodding slightly. There was a silent understanding between them. Some stories need to follow their own paths. "And the best part," Helena added, her face lighting up, "we already have our first initiative underway. Sophia, do you want to show everyone?" Sophia stood up, her cheeks flushed with pride. She connected her laptop to the projector, and with a few clicks presented the cataloging system she had developed with her father's help. "It's a software that helps organize not just the books, but all of the center's resources," she explained, her voice growing more confident as she spoke. "And the best part is that other community centers will be able to use it too." "And I made the video tutorials," Laura added, jumping up from her chair, "with shadow puppetry and everything." A wave of affectionate laughter ran through the auditorium. Helena and Gael exchanged a knowing look. Their daughters, each in their own way, were already building bridges between the old and the new. Donna Carmen, who was watching everything with tears in her eyes, raised her hand. "What about the rent problem, the new owner?" "That won't be a problem anymore," Gael interrupted smoothly. "The foundation that will run the new center has already purchased the building. And no, it wasn't Tech Vision," he added quickly, seeing Helena's worried look. "It was a joint acquisition by several community partners. This space belongs to everyone who built it with so much love over the years." A buzz of excitement ran through the audience. Plans were discussed, suggestions shared, dreams expanded. Amidst the excitement, Sophia tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad?" she called softly. "Remember when you told me the story of Ada Lovelace? About how she used math and imagination to create something new?" "I remember," he replied, puzzled. "I think I see what you mean. Sometimes we need numbers and codes, but sometimes we need magic too, like Mom always says." Gael felt his heart fill with an emotion that no business success had ever given him. "Your mother was always wiser than me, Sophia. It took me a while to understand, but now I know. The best programs are those that have a little magic in the code." The following weeks brought a different routine to the community center. Between planning meetings and the beginning of renovations, Helena and Gael found themselves working side by side more and more often. The forced proximity, which initially caused some discomfort, gradually gave way to a renewed familiarity. One particularly busy afternoon, while discussing the details of the new computer lab, they were interrupted by excited shouts coming from the courtyard. As they approached the window, they saw Laura leading an improvised presentation with her shadow theater. The audience, made up of children from the literacy project, laughed and applauded each scene. She has a gift for captivating people, Helena commented, a soft smile on her lips. And Sophia has her dedication, Gale replied, pointing to a corner, where his more reserved daughter was patiently explaining the new library system to Donna Carmem. The moment was interrupted by Ricardo, who entered the room carrying some folders. "Sorry, I didn't know you were here," he said, making a move to leave. "Stay, Ricardo," Helena called to him. "In fact, your opinion would be very welcome. We are discussing the schedule of sports activities for the new center." The physical education teacher hesitated for a moment, but eventually joined them. To everyone's surprise, especially his own, his suggestions fit perfectly with the vision that was being built. "We could integrate technology and physical activity," he suggested, his professional enthusiasm overcoming any initial embarrassment. "Use motion sensors for educational games, create competitions that mix physical and mental challenges." Gale was genuinely impressed by the ideas. "This would be great for the overall development of children," he agreed. "In fact, I think TechVision has some prototypes that we could adapt." The sound of hurried footsteps interrupted their conversation. Sophia entered the room, her normally serious face lit up with unusual excitement. "Dad! Mom! I've discovered something amazing," she exclaimed, momentarily forgetting her usual reserve. "I was organizing the old files at the center, and I found a picture." She held up a photograph that had turned yellow with age. In it, a much younger Helena was smiling next to a group of children. The detail that caught everyone's attention, however, was the banner in the background. Technology for All Project, 2015. This project, Helena picked up the photo with trembling hands. "It was my final project in college. I dreamed of creating a digital inclusion program for underprivileged communities, but I never got funding." "Was this the project you tried to pitch to me that night?" Gale asked, an old memory surfacing in his mind. "The night of the video conference with Shanghai?" Helena nodded silently. Ricardo, realizing the intensity of the moment, discreetly left the room, taking Sophia with him. "I didn't even let you finish explaining," Gale continued, the guilt evident in his voice. "I was so focused on that negotiation." "And now here we are," Helena finished softly, realizing that dream in a way I never imagined. The silence that followed was interrupted by Laura, who burst into the room like a small hurricane. "Mommy, Daddy, come and see. Sophia has programmed special lights for the Shadow Theater. It's magical." Without waiting for an answer, she grabbed both of their hands and pulled them into the courtyard. Outside, Sophia had connected her laptop to a small projector, creating light effects that danced on the walls, while Laura manipulated the puppets in the theater. The impromptu performance attracted other staff and students from the center. Soon, a small crowd formed, applauding and laughing at Laura's stories, perfectly complemented by Sophia's technical effects. Gale felt Helena approach him discreetly. "They're amazing together, aren't they? So different yet so complementary." "As we were," he replied softly. "As we can be again. In a different way." Helena didn't answer right away, but she didn't move away. They stood there side by side, watching their daughters shine in their own way. At the back of the courtyard, Ricardo watched the scene with a serene smile, finally understanding that some loves need to follow unexpected paths to find their true purpose. The afternoon wore on, painting the sky in golden hues, while in the community center, amidst dancing shadows and children's laughter, old wounds began to heal, giving way to new possibilities. It was as if the universe conspired to prove that sometimes unfulfilled dreams are just seeds, waiting for the right moment to blossom. The discovery of the old photo triggered a series of subtle changes in the dynamic between Helena and Gale. During planning meetings for the new center, their gazes lingered a little longer. Their ideas complemented each other with a harmony that recalled the early days of their relationship. The twins, always observant, did not miss a single detail. One afternoon, while working on yet another update to the library system, Sophia shared her observations with her sister. "Laura," she said, typing codes into her laptop, "have you noticed how Mommy smiles differently when Daddy is around?" Laura, who was playing with the puppets in her shadow theater, nodded enthusiastically. "And how come Daddy always finds an excuse to come by here, even when there's no meeting. The girls exchanged knowing glances, but were interrupted by Ricardo's arrival. He was carrying a box of new sports equipment, a gift from one of the project's partners. "Hello, little ones," he greeted with his usual gentle smile. "Where's your mother?" "In the conference room with Dad," Laura replied, watching the professor's reaction closely. "They're planning the grand opening event for the new lab." Ricardo just nodded, his smile not wavering. There was something different about his posture, a serenity that hadn't been there a few weeks ago. "Uncle Ricardo," Sophia called, surprising everyone with her initiative to talk. "Don't you feel sad?" The teacher sat down next to the girls, thoughtful. "You know, Sophia, sometimes life surprises us with its plans. What seems like sadness at first may just be the universe guiding us towards the right path. Like when I make a mistake in a line of code," Sophia mused, "and discover that the mistake led me to a better solution." Ricardo laughed softly. "Exactly. And you know what? Seeing you happy, seeing this center grow, that's worth more than anything else." Laura, always emotional, jumped to give Ricardo a hug. Sophia, more restrained, offered a small smile. In the meeting room, Helena and Gail were finalizing the last details of the inauguration event when they were surprised by a soft melody coming from the courtyard. Laura had convinced Ricardo to play the guitar, and her voice mingled with the children's laughter. "He's a good man," Gail commented, looking out the window. "Yes, it is," Helena agreed. "It was very important to the girls, and to me, during those years." "Helena," Gail turned to face her, "we need to talk about us." She felt her heart race. "Gail, I'm not asking us to go back to the way we were," he was quick to clarify. "We're different people now, but working with you, seeing how you turned that old project of mine into something so much bigger, so much more meaningful. It made me realize how much time we wasted living in separate worlds." "The girls seem happier," Helena commented, slightly diverting from the subject. "They are extraordinary," Gail smiled. "Sophia has her quiet strength, her ability to see beyond the superficial, and Laura, she has her heart, Helena. That same heart that took me so long to understand and appreciate." Helena felt tears forming in her eyes. "You've really changed." "Thanks to you. Thanks to our daughters. Thanks to this place that taught me that success is not measured in numbers on a spreadsheet." Outside, Ricardo's music created an almost magical atmosphere. The children's voices joined together in an improvised chorus, and for a moment, the entire community center seemed to vibrate with a special energy. "I don't want to rush anything," Gail continued softly, "but I want you to know that I'm here. Not as the obsessed businessman I was, but as someone who has finally learned to see what really matters." Helena didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the window, watching her daughters. Sophia had put her laptop aside and was now timidly trying to keep up with the music by clapping her hands. Laura was dancing freely, her joy spreading to everyone around her. "You know," she said finally, "that old project of mine, it wasn't just about technology. It was about building bridges, connecting people, creating possibilities. How are we doing now?" "Yes," Helena turned to him with a small smile. "As we are doing now. In a way I never imagined, but perhaps it is exactly as it should be." The music outside reached its peak, and for a magical moment past and present seemed to meet in perfect harmony. It was as if the universe conspired to show that sometimes the longest paths are necessary to get where we really need to be. The morning began with a buzz at the community center. The new technology lab was only a week away, and everyone was busy making the final preparations. Helena was coordinating the organization of the event when she received a call that would change the course of the day. "Daughter." The voice of Donna Beatrice, her mother, sounded weak on the other end of the line. "I'm not feeling very well." 20 minutes later, Helena arrived at her mother's house panting to find her pale and with low blood pressure. An emergency appointment was scheduled for that afternoon, but it meant Helena would have to miss an important meeting with potential project partners. When she called Gail to explain the situation, his response surprised her. "Don't worry about the meeting. I'll go with you and Donna Beatriz to the doctor. But Gail, the investors, Ricardo and Donna Carmen can lead the meeting. I trust their judgment, and you prepared an impeccable presentation. Family comes first, Helena." Those last words, "family comes first," echoed in Helena's mind as she watched Gail helping her mother into the car. It was the first time Donna Beatriz had seen him since the separation. "So," the lady said after a moment of awkward silence, "you're back." "Yes, Donna Beatriz," Gail replied, maneuvering the car carefully. "It took me a while, but I finally understood what really matters." In the back seat, Helena felt her heart tighten. The last time she had seen her mother and Gail in the same room had been during the divorce papers, a tense moment she would rather forget. In the doctor's office, while they waited for the test results, Donna Beatriz observed Gail with analytical eyes that were very reminiscent of Sophia's. "My granddaughters talk about you a lot," she said. "Laura can't stop telling me about the stories you read together. And Sophia, that little girl has been so different since she started working with you on the library project." Gail smiled softly. "They are extraordinary, Donna Beatriz. They have a lot of you in them, you know? That quiet strength of Sophia's and Laura's determination," the woman added, a small smile playing on her lips. "You know, for years I was mad at you. I watched my daughter raise those girls alone, build something beautiful at the community center. Mom," Helena tried to intervene, but Donna Beatriz raised her hand, asking her to continue. "But now," she continued, "I see something different in your eyes. It's not the blind ambition I saw before. There's humility and true love." The doctor called Donna Beatriz for the appointment, leaving Helena and Gail alone in the waiting room. The silence between them was full of unspoken emotions. "I'm sorry," Helena said finally. "Mom was always very protective." "No," Gail interrupted her gently. "She's right. I was blind, Helena. Blinded by ambition, by pride. Your mother only saw what it took me years to realize. Donna Beatriz's diagnosis was not serious, just a drop in blood pressure caused by stress and fatigue. But the doctor recommended rest and constant monitoring over the next few days. She can stay at my apartment," Gail offered, surprising everyone. "It's closer to the medical center, and it has a comfortable guest room. The girls can visit whenever they want." Helena stared at him in amazement. This was not the same man who had considered his penthouse an inviolable sanctuary of work. "Wouldn't that be a bother?" asked Donna Beatriz, clearly touched by the offer. "Not at all. In fact," Gail hesitated for a moment, then continued, "It would be an honor to be able to repay even a little all the care you took with my daughters when I was not around." On the way back, with Donna Beatriz dozing in the back seat, Helena watched Gail's profile as he drove. The afternoon sun created soft shadows on his face, highlighting the gray hairs that were not there 5 years ago. "Thank you," she said softly, "for today, for everything." Gail just nodded, but his eyes, when they met hers briefly, said so much more than words could express. In that moment, Helena realized that the bridges they were rebuilding were not just between them, but with an entire family history that needed healing. At the community center, Ricardo and Donna Carmen were waiting for them with good news. The meeting had been a success, and new partners had committed to the project. But somehow this news seemed secondary to the small personal victory they had achieved. That day, the victory of finally beginning to see each other not just as ex-spouses or project partners, but as a family in the process of rebuilding. The days that followed brought a new dynamic to everyone's lives. Donna Beatriz, who was living in Gail's apartment, received daily visits from her granddaughters, who filled the previously silent space with laughter and stories. Sophia had transformed a corner of the living room into her new programming space, while Laura rehearsed shadow theater performances using the white walls as a canvas. Gail, who had previously spent little time at home, now found himself eager to return to the apartment at the end of the day. The conversations with Donna Beatriz over dinner, the stories she shared about Helena's childhood, the memories of the twins as babies, All of this filled a void he hadn't even known existed. One of those nights, while the girls were sleeping, in the room he had prepared especially for them, Donna Beatriz found him on the balcony contemplating the city. "Do you know what Helena told me when she found out she was pregnant with twins?" she asked, sitting down in one of the chairs. Gael shook his head, curious. "She said, 'Mommy, now I'll have two hearts beating outside my chest.' At the time, I thought it was so poetic." Donna Beatriz smiled at the memory. But she was right. "And you, Gael, you missed so many of those heartbeats." "I won't miss any more," he replied with conviction. "I know," the lady nodded softly. "I see it in the way you look at them, in the way you breathe more slowly when Helena is around." Gael felt his face heat up. "Is it that obvious?" "To a mother, everything is obvious," she smiled. "Especially when it comes to her daughter's heart." The next day, the community center was an organized chaos of preparations for the inauguration. Helena was coordinating the installation of the last equipment when Ricardo approached. "I need to tell you something," he said, his face serene. "I've been invited to coordinate an international sports project. It's in Spain." Helena stopped what she was doing, surprised. "Ricardo, I will accept," he continued softly. "It is time for me to follow my own path, Helena. This place, you, the girls, have taught me so much. But now I understand that some loves are bridges to other destinies." Before Helena could answer, they heard a commotion coming from the library. They ran there, finding Sophia in tears, something very rare to see. "What happened?" Helena asked, worried. "The system," Sophia sobbed. "Something went wrong. I lost all my cataloging work." Gael, who was nearby, quickly approached the computer. "Calm down, Princess. Let Daddy see." While he was examining the code with Sophia, Laura approached Ricardo. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she asked, perceptive as ever. "I saw the tickets on your phone when you were showing the game videos." Ricardo knelt down to be at her level. "Yes, I will, little one. But that doesn't mean I'll forget about you." "I know," Laura smiled, surprising him with a hug. "Mommy always says that some people are like stars. Even from afar, they still light our way." At the computer desk, Gael managed to recover Sophia's system, patiently explaining where the error was and how to avoid it in the future. "See?" He smiled, wiping away his daughter's tears. "Sometimes a bug in the code isn't the end of the world. It's just an opportunity to do something better." Helena watched the scene, her heart overflowing with emotions. Ricardo approached her one last time. "Now I understand," he said softly. "Some loves don't need fixing. They just need the right time to bloom again." That night, after everyone had left, Helena found an envelope on her desk. Inside was an old photo. She and Gael on the day the twins were born, exhausted but radiant, with happiness. Along with it, a note in her mother's handwriting. "Daughter, some stories don't end. They just pause so we can learn to rewrite them better. With love, Mommy." Helena tucked the photo into her purse, her heart beating a new but strangely familiar rhythm. Outside, the sun was setting over the community center, painting the sky with colors that seemed to promise a new dawn. The day of the new lab's opening finally arrived. The community center was unrecognizable. Colorful banners decorated the walls. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade treats filled the air, and an infectious energy emanated from every corner. Sophia woke before dawn, eager to check her cataloging system one last time. Gael found her already installed in front of the computer in the new lab, her small fingers typing determinedly. "Princess, isn't it too early?" "I want to make sure everything works perfectly," she replied, without taking her eyes off the screen. "Laura will be presenting the system to the guests, and I promised there would be no errors." Gael smiled, recognizing in his daughter the same quest for perfection that had once been his obsession. But there was one fundamental difference. Sophia was not doing this out of ambition or recognition, but out of love for the project and the people it would help. "You know," he said, pulling up a chair to sit beside her, "your mother always said that perfection isn't doing everything right, but doing everything with your heart." Sophia finally looked away from the screen. She still says that, especially when I get something wrong. And she's right as always, Gail chuckled softly. Want to know a secret? The first system I built for Tech Vision was so buggy that we almost lost our first major client. But you know what saved us? What? The honesty in admitting mistakes, and the dedication to correcting them. Sometimes, Sophia, it is our imperfections that make us more human and trustworthy. At that moment, Laura burst through the door, already dressed in the special outfit she had chosen for the performance, a blue dress with little stars embroidered on it. Sophia! Daddy! You have to see! Grandma brought a surprise! Following. Laura into the courtyard. They found Donna Beatriz overseeing the installation of a huge photo board. It showed images of the community center over the years, from its early days as a modest project to the present. In the center of the board, one particular photo stood out, a much younger Helena presenting her final project on digital inclusion. I found these photos stored at home, Donna Beatriz explained. I thought it would be appropriate to show the Yassi entire journey. Helena, who had just arrived, stopped in front of the panel, her eyes filled with tears. Mommy, did you save all of this? Of course I kept it, daughter. I always knew your dream was bigger than that moment. I just never imagined it would come true like this. Guests began to arrive. Local authorities, representatives of partner, companies, families of children served by the center, journalists. Ricardo, who had postponed his trip to attend the inauguration, helped organize the groups of visitors. The most anticipated moment arrived, the official presentation of the new digital library system. Laura took to the small stage with surprising confidence for her age. Welcome to the New Horizons Community Center, she began, her voice clear and excited. Today I'm going to show you something very special. It's a project that brings together my sister Sophia's talent for programming, my mother's vision for education, and my father's expertise in technology. Sophia, operating the computer behind the scenes, felt her heart swell with pride. As the system worked flawlessly during the demonstration, every click, every function responded exactly as planned. But the most touching moment came when Laura called Helena and Gail to the stage. This place, the little presenter continued, is more than a community center. It's proof that love and technology can work together. It's where old stories gain new chapters, and where we discover that family isn't just about those who live in the same house, but those who build dreams together. Gail and Helena looked at each other, surprised by the wisdom contained in their daughter's words. Donna Beatriz in the front rows discreetly wiped away some tears. And you know what's cool? Laura concluded with a radiant smile. It all started with a dream my mom had back in college, a dream my dad helped me grow up with. Sophia says it's like programming. Sometimes it takes a lot of tries before the code works right. But when it does, she paused dramatically, it's magical. The applause was thunderous. Sophia finally stepped out from behind her computer to join her sister on stage. The twins, holding hands, smiled at the audience as the camera flashes captured the moment. Helena felt Gail's hand lightly brush against hers. When their fingers discreetly intertwined, it was as if an electrical circuit had finally completed, sending a warm current of possibilities throughout her body. The opening party lasted into the afternoon, turning into a celebration not only of the new laboratory, but of the entire community that had formed around the center. Amidst conversations and congratulations, Helena found a moment to say a proper goodbye to Ricardo. So that's it, she said, watching him put away the last of the sports equipment. That's it, he smiled without sadness. But it's not an end, Helena. It's just a new beginning for all of us. The girls will miss you, and I'm theirs, but we promise to make video calls so they can tell me about the project's progress. Sophia has even programmed a fixed time. In the system. They laughed, remembering the girls' meticulous organization. On the other side of the courtyard, Sophia and Laura proudly showed off their new laboratory to their grandmother, who pretended to understand all the technical explanations. With admirable patience, you deserve to be happy. Helena, Ricardo said softly, we all deserve to find our true path. Before she could respond, Gael approached, carrying some folders. "Ricardo," he said, holding out a card, "I have some contacts in Madrid who can help you with your sports project. They are people who understand the importance of social work." Ricardo accepted the card, surprised and touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Gael. That means a lot." The three shared a moment of silent understanding, a circle of affection and respect that had formed in an unexpected but deeply meaningful way. In the evening, when most of the guests had already left, Donna Beatriz gathered the family for a special moment. She had prepared an album with old and new photos, including records of that day. "Look," she pointed to a photo from earlier in the party, Sophia explaining the system to the business people, just like her father when he talks about technology. "And Laura, that charisma on stage is all yours, Helena." The girls snuggled between their parents on the couch in the meeting room, now transformed into a more welcoming space. Gail noticed how Sophia, normally so reserved, rested her head on his shoulder as she flipped through the album. "Dad," she called softly, "that story you told earlier today about TechVision's first system." "Yes? Thank you for teaching me that mistakes are part of the process. Mom always says that, but it's different when it comes from someone who's already built something great." Gael felt his heart tighten. "You and your sister are the most important thing I've ever built in my life, Sophia. It just took me a long time to realize that." Laura, who was pretending to be focused on the photos but was clearly listening to the conversation, raised her head. "But now you know," she said with her characteristic simplicity. "And it's here. That's what matters, isn't it, Mummy?" Helena, who was watching the scene with teary eyes, just nodded. Words seemed inadequate to express the fullness of. So that moment, Donna Beatriz discreetly began to gather her things. "Well, it's getting late. I think I'll go back to the apartment." "Stay a little longer, Grandma," Laura said. "Daddy can take us later. Can't you, Dad?" Gael exchanged a look with Helena, a silent question hovering between them. "Actually," Helena began hesitantly, "I was thinking, since tomorrow is Saturday, maybe we could all have dinner together. There's a new Italian restaurant near here. The one with live theatre." Laura's eyes lit up. "And a digital ordering system," Sophia added, equally excited. Gael smiled, recognizing the perfect combination of his daughter's interests in choosing the location. "I think it's a great idea. Donna Beatriz?" The lady smiled, her eyes shining with wisdom. "Of course. After all, families need moments like these, moments to make new memories." As they helped organize the last things in the center, Gael and Helena found themselves alone for a moment in the library. The sun was setting outside, casting a golden light through the windows. "Helena," he called softly, "about today, about everything." She turned to face him, and in that moment, words seemed superfluous. Years of hurt, regret, and unspoken hope converged in that moment. "I know," she replied simply, a small smile playing on her lips. "Me too." 3 months have passed since the inauguration of the new laboratory, the Novos Horizontes community. Center had become a successful model, attracting visitors from various parts of the country interested in replicating the project. But the biggest transformations happened in the small moments, in the daily interactions that wove a new family story. On a particularly meaningful Saturday afternoon, Sophia was engrossed in her laptop, making final adjustments to an update to the library system. Laura was rehearsing another of her presentations, this time incorporating digital special effects that her sister had programmed especially for her. "Sophia," Laura called, interrupting her concentration, "look what I found at the bottom of this box." Sophia looked up from the screen to see her sister holding a yellowed envelope. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized her mother's handwriting. It was another one of her old unsent letters. "Laura, I don't think we should—" "But this one is different," Laura insisted, her eyes shining with excitement. "It's dated yesterday." Sophia jumped to her feet, her full attention now on the envelope her sister was holding. The two looked at each other for a moment, a silent decision being made. With trembling fingers, Laura opened the envelope and began to read aloud. "Dear Gail, Unlike the other letters I have written over the years, this one was not born out of sadness or unresolved longing. I am writing today moved by a different feeling, gratitude. Thank you for finding your way back not only to our daughters, but to yourself. Thank you for learning that success is not measured in numbers, but in Sophia's smile when she solves a programming problem, or in Laura's bright eyes when she finishes another presentation. Yesterday, as I watched you patiently teach a group of teenagers in the lab, I saw the man I fell in love with so many years ago, not the successful businessman, but that idealistic young man who dreamed of changing the world through technology. Our daughters are living proof that some loves don't end, they just change. Sophia has her determination, but she's learned to use it to build bridges instead of walls. Laura has her charisma, but she uses it to bring people together instead of impressing them. The community center has blossomed in ways I never imagined possible. But do you know what moves me the most? Seeing how you blossom along with it. How your eyes shine no longer with the reflection of material achievements, but with the light of true purpose. 5 years ago, when we separated, I thought we were closing a chapter. Today I realize that perhaps we were just taking a much-needed break, a time to grow apart before we learn to grow together again. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I know that right now we are all, you, me, our daughters, exactly where we are supposed to be. And that, my love, is the greatest achievement we could ever have. With love, Helena. The twins finished reading the letter in silence, silent tears streaming down their faces. That was when they noticed movement at the library door. Their parents were standing there, hands clasped, watching them with a mixture of surprise and excitement. "Mommy," Sophia began. "Daddy," Laura whispered at the same time. Helena approached slowly, Gail close behind her. "This letter was supposed to be a surprise," she said softly. "Part of a special gift we were preparing." "What gift?" Laura asked, her eyes shining with curiosity even through her tears. Gail knelt down to his daughter's level. "Well, your mother and I were thinking, what would you think if we all moved back in together? Not in the old penthouse, but in a new house, near the community center, with room for a lab for Sophia and a small theater for Laura." The silence that followed lasted only a second before it was broken by Laura's cries of joy and, to everyone's surprise, by an emotional sob from Sophia, who was normally so restrained in her displays of affection. The day to move into the new house arrived on a sunny Sunday morning. It was a cozy building with a large garden, located just 2 blocks from the community center. Donna Beatriz oversaw the organization, ensuring that each room received a special touch that made it truly a home. The girls' room was the first to be tidied up. Sophia immediately set up her tech corner, as Laura affectionately called the space where her sister set up her computer and equipment. On the other side, a small stage was built especially for Laura's performances, with a lighting system programmed by Sophia. But the real surprise was saved for the end. When all the furniture was in place, Gail gathered the family in the main room. "Girls," he called, "your mother and I have prepared something special." Helena then revealed a large mural that took up the entire central wall. It was a composition of photos, letters, drawings, and memories that told the story of that family. Not only the happy moments, but also the difficult ones, the absences and the reunions that made them who they were. "Love is when someone comes back and stays," Sophia read aloud, recognizing the phrase she and Laura had written months ago. "And we stay," Gail added, hugging his daughters. "Forever." Helena joined in the hug, and soon Donna Beatriz was there too, forming a perfect circle of affection and understanding. On the wall, memories of the past were mixed with promises of the future, photos of the inauguration of the laboratory, newspaper clippings about the success of the project, drawings by the girls, and even some of the old unsent letters, now part of a story of overcoming and love. "Look," Laura exclaimed, pointing to a recent photo of Ricardo smiling next to a group of children in Madrid, wearing a New Horizons Community Center t-shirt. "He looks happy." "We all find our way," Helena said softly. "Sometimes we have to get a little lost to find the right direction. Sophia, who had been examining every detail of the mural, stopped at one particular photo. She and her father concentrated in front of a computer, working on the library system. "Dad," she called, her voice thick with emotion, "remember when you said I would be the lead programmer on the project?" Gail nodded, smiling. "Well, I was thinking, what if we expanded the system? Create a network that connected other community centers so that more children could have access to education and technology?" "A dream network," Laura added, her eyes shining. "I could create online presentations to teach other children how to tell stories." Helena and Gail looked at each other, recognizing in their daughters the same desire to make a difference that had initially united them. "It's an excellent project," Gail said. "In fact, I've already received some contacts from other cities interested in replicating our model. And I," Helena added, "received an invitation to present our methodology at an international education conference. But this time," she smiled, shaking Gail's hand, "we're all going together." Donna Beatriz watched the scene with teary eyes. "You have built something much bigger than a community center or a technology company," she said. "You have built a legacy of love and purpose." The afternoon sun streamed in through the large windows, illuminating the mural and creating golden reflections in the photographs. Laura, ever the dramatic type, took out her shadow puppet and began creating shapes that danced on the walls. Sophia, inspired, turned on her laptop to add digital effects to her sister's improvised performance. And there, in that room full of old and new memories,